Hello and welcome back to another episode of the It's Not Orange podcast. As Blackpool's hunt for a manager goes on, so does the search for the third win of the season. A pretty poor result at Stockport after a slightly better performance in the second half. Blackpool will desperately be looking for 3 points at home against Wycombe tomorrow at Bloomfield Road. And helping me preview that game is Dan Clark. How are you, buddy?
I'm all right. How are you? Seem to have similar seasons so far, so I think we're both feeling probably as down about our clubs as we can be at the moment. But yeah,
Yeah, I think we will go into it, but you're starting to settle the ship a little bit, and you've got a very good manager in Duff, in my opinion. But I think his we'll talk about him in a little bit. I think his success will be really determined on how you do this season, because obviously he had a great time previously and a hard time at Huddersfield, etc. So it'd be nice to see how he gets on at a completely different club, away from sort of his local area, what he did last time. So
absolutely.
yeah, we'll get straight into things, mate. I want to talk a little bit about last season, if I may. I know the playoffs didn't go as planned for Wycombe, as they have done in previous years, but a bit of a manager merry-go-round, and lost a lot of momentum towards the back end of the season, which obviously resulted in you failing at the playoffs. But were you happy upon reflection on it, or did you feel like you should have got the job done in automatics?
It was a really weird season in the end because obviously we flew to start off with. We were absolutely flying. We had a run from the back end of August through to around just middle of December time where we were unbeatable. Scored 50 goals up until the end of the year, and you just thought,
Yep.
we're world beaters. That's it, championship secured. That's all right. See you later. But then I don't know. It came to I put the pin on it. If I look back on last season, it came back to Bolton at home. We had them on the 20th of December, just before Christmas, and we drew 0-0. We looked really flat. There was that was the first kind of sign that we were looking to tire a bit, and that's where it kind of went. And then obviously Bloomfield went in January, mid-January, and we took a month
Yep.
to kind of bring Dodds in February, and then obviously Dodds is now gone, but we was out for a couple of months, and then we had a completely transitional transfer window where we had 9 players come or something like that through the door. Um, it was just it was hard, and I don't think anyone could have settled during that second half of the season. We were starting to kind of run a bit tired, and I think that showed because obviously especially when we came to Bloomfield Road last time, that was, I think it was late August time or sort of, it was quite early on in the
It
season.
was
We drew
early, yeah,
2-2.
definitely.
Yeah.
Was it
And,
not just
that
our first home game? Was it like the second game of the season?
I think it was something very, very
Yeah.
soon. It was, I remember because it was one of our first looks at Dan Udo, and obviously he scored a great goal to equalise in the second half. Or no, we were leading, weren't we? And then you equalised late on or something like I can't remember. It's too
Yeah, I
long
think
ago. It
you
feels
went
like
one
5 years
nil and
ago or
2-1
something.
up, and we equalised both times. Yeah,
That was it. Yeah, no,
yeah.
that's right. Yeah.
Because Ravs had a really
Um,
good game, didn't he? Ironically.
he had a fantastic game, yeah, and
Yeah,
we do miss him now and again, but yeah, it's strange. But then you would have seen the change when you came down to ours and won in the last minute. Albeit the game was
no,
quite flat,
true,
but that's
true.
kind of that. Did we draw?
Yeah, Cole Joseph
Did you know
scored
what?
because
Right.
Kone scored the penalty, didn't he? Or
Yes, he did. No, you're right. Do you know what? We've
mate,
had
you're the
20,
statistician here.
26,
Like,
27 signings. Oh,
you're the one
I don't
telling
know
me
where the
my
last couple
results
of years
usually.
gone.
But yeah,
I know, I
um,
know. We've had a complete last 12 months has just been a blur
yeah,
in terms of how we change. We've had so many new signings. We've had 4 different managers if you count the caretaker in that
yeah,
kind of stuff. It's just at the moment we can't keep track. We just want to settle now. That's what we
yeah,
want.
yeah.
So the hangover of last season's kind of come into this season, and it's not been fun to start off with. But I think you as a club can definitely sympathise with how we've been feeling to start off with this season. Full of promise, but not lived up to the hype so far.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll talk about that now with that man in my screen now. Michael Duff appointed new head coach of Wycombe around about a month ago, and the last 5 games, I would call it steadying the ships. Somewhat after a pretty poor start to the season, but just share with the Blackpool fans and the It's Not Orange podcast how sort of Dodd's probably failed as a manager, and how you're now looking to settle the ship because your recent stability has been pretty decent with 2 wins, a draw, and 2 losses. I get doesn't sound great, but at the same time, it's starting to settle, and you're starting to climb the table a little bit.
I think it's exactly that. I think with Dodds, I think he's got the ability, he's got the football knowledge there. I think we were just the wrong club at the wrong time for him. Especially with, I say our new owners, they're not new anymore. Our owners coming in, they've got a decent level of finance, something that we've actually never seen before. We're used to kind of our manager buying the goal nets and things like that and putting them up on the first day of training. We've gone from that to a £10 million training facility now. So that kind of tells you, it's transitioned quite quickly
Very
for us. But
sudden transition as well.
exactly that, but then the
Yeah,
expectations of the fan base kind of go up as well, because you go, well, if you're spending this much on a training base, and we're actually spending money on players for the first time in forever. Previously, our record transfer was £200,000 back in the year '99 and 2000. Like, we bought two players for 200 grand each, and that was our record transfer, and we've smashed that countless times since then in the last year alone. So the expectations rise, and I think when you bring in a manager who's got no experience, albeit he's got, he's done well with Sunderland and everything from an assistant manager perspective, I just don't think we were right for him at the time, and he was trying to implement something, his own philosophy, and kind of imprint that. He didn't want to rock the boat too much at the end of last season, and I think coming into it, as any new manager would, he struggled. And I think we needed someone, especially with the amount of signings we've made. We needed an experienced head, and I think the majority of us now think we've got that in Duff. Obviously, from a Swansea and a Huddersfield perspective, he didn't have a great time there. But then I wouldn't compare us to Swansea and Huddersfield at the time. They're completely different. They were in completely different phases, as compared to us. Whereas if you look at his time at Barnsley, when he had a relatively young squad, which is something that we've got now, and his success at Cheltenham as well, being the underdogs and what have you, and that's kind of something that we thrived on. It's a tag we've thrived on for years. I think that's where we fit him quite nicely, as well as him fitting us, and that's exactly what we needed. So I'm quite hopeful. And as you say, he steadied the ship over the last few games. I think it's 5 or 6 games now he's done. We've won 3 or 4. Yeah, we've won 4, drawn 1, lost 1. So, in the last 6, and that's including a couple of cup games as well. But positive. That's the kind of change we need. So yeah, we're quite hopeful that he's coming out the interviews, he's speaking a lot of sense. He knows where the improvements are, and he's working on that. And you can see the shift in mentality week on week. So we're quite hopeful that we'll steer away from obviously the bottom end of League One over the next few weeks.
I was just going to say that if you look at Swansea's recent history, I take Swansea because I think a few managers have gone there, a few players have gone there, such as Jerry Yates from Blackpool and stuff, and you kind of expect Swansea to sort of take off. Russell Martin was there, and a few others in the past, and I think they haven't achieved playoffs for many years now and have sort of success, and their fan base kind of demands that as well. And I think Duff potentially might have been the right manager for them, like you say, at a different time. But I think all of these clubs are trying to find a manager that will be the right formula, and like many clubs where you kind of have that immediate impact. I can see why they went for him at the time, and I still think he's an excellent acquisition for Wycombe, and I think he's the perfect man. Very level-headed, doesn't play too negative football, and knows how to sort of attack teams as well. So I think he's a great manager, and like you say, in interviews he comes across really well and inspirational in terms of being a man manager as well.
I think it makes a big difference when you kind of obviously it was a space for like 2 or 3 hours since we announced that Dodds was going and Duff was in. Obviously in between that 2 hours or so, beforehand we had a month, so we were there's some all wild theories coming out. We were looking at a couple from Randers in Denmark and things like that who've been looked at by Norwich, for example, and things like that. And Brentford's assistant coach Klaus Norgard was at the time, and things like that. And we didn't know who we were going to bring in, but as soon as Duff was announced, or it was kind of put up there that Duff was set to be named, everyone was like, "Yeah, okay, I'll take that. That sounds really good."
Yeah, it's
Um,
definitely not a bad
and
choice, is it?
no, it's not. And I think you're right with Swansea and Huddersfield. I think their expectations, I mean, they're recently Premier League clubs. If you look over the last 10 years, they're Premier League clubs. And they've got the infrastructure to be that as well. I don't think that fits the mold. No disrespect to Barnsley there or anything, but
Yeah, well,
it's
Huddersfield fans
lower
already
league.
want whispers of getting League Front out, and they would have gone forth with that victory if it weren't for two goals in 5 minutes last night. It's a great comeback by Bolton, but just to
Mm,
put into perspective, if we were a win away from being fourth, obviously we certainly wouldn't be wishing for the manager to go. But I think he hasn't played the football that they expect as well. So I don't know what football fans want. As Blackpool fans, we expect or expected immediate success, and we expected Dobbie to maybe be a lot different on Saturday, but it just doesn't work like that, does it? When you've left such a like Dodds as an example, probably left a quite a difficult situation to deal with, even though he wasn't in for that long. And then you've got to change that all
mm.
around in a matter of weeks to get your season back on track and push for promotion again. It is going to be a difficult job for anyone, and more so for Blackpool's manager, who we've lost 8 already this season. So it's a ridiculous change of behaviour for any manager to come in, and you've got to give managers time, as much as that's a phrase used in football. But I think Duff will be a good fit for Wycombe in the future. So
No, I think so too, and I think you've got to look at it from this perspective. League One is an absolute basket case of a league this season.
yeah,
You've got people calling for Lee Grant's head, even though Huddersfield have signed the players they have and everything else. And, maybe he's not the experienced head that Huddersfield need to get them out this league. We've seen it in previous years. Sunderland, Bolton as another example, Ipswich for a few years. It's hard to get out this league.
yeah.
Derby as well to an extent. You've got to do a lot of things to get it right, or have £40 million like Birmingham had.
Yeah, absolutely.
That mix,
Um,
but so but look at Luton. Luton have got rid of Field because they're mid-table and their expectations are that they go straight back up. I think you've made the right decision in kind of getting rid now and changing at this point because you've got time to change around the season. I think if you look at Leyton Orient and Charlton last season and the late charge they made to make the playoff final, both of them, there's every scope for anyone now who makes that change and turns the tide quite quickly to make fit that playoff picture quite quickly. I think the clubs that should be worried at the moment are probably your Readings and your Peterboroughs, who are not making the changes and are languishing at the bottom somewhat. So yeah,
yeah,
very very strange league this season compared to last.
yeah. Yeah, it's kind of flipped on its head, hasn't it? So
Mm.
let's talk more about Wycombe then, because that's why we're here. I'll do 2 in 1 here. So your season so far, not necessarily focusing on Dodds, but just your performances initially and how recent stability with what we discussed, 8 points from the last sort of 15, wasn't it? Much healthier than the momentum or the regression you haven't previously under Dodds. So just talk to us about so far about your season and how it's improved recently.
Very strange season. As I mentioned, I think it's 26 or 27 signings we've had since January. So, and we've had a lot of outgoings as well. So we've had a complete change around in squad and everything else. And we've gone from, we were renowned for having Akin Fenwick, GMAC, Gareth McCleary, who were like 40, 37 and all that, and the old guard playing. And we've gone to have gone, we've changed that completely. The worry that we have is that, and you see it with a lot of young players, and we see it in the the EFL Trophy quite a lot, is that these young players don't necessarily have the strength that League One demands. And we found that we've been getting out muscle quite a bit more. Our guy who's in the middle of the park, Josh Scowen, has been out with an ACL, I think, injury since Leyton Orient last season. And we've missed him. If we had him in the squad, we'd be doing far better than we would be because he's that guy in the middle of the park that breaks everything up. But in terms of our performances, they haven't. Some of them have been bad, but it's just been a case of we've done a lot of passing, we've done a lot of the right things, but the wrong one thing we haven't done is score. Obviously, we're missing Kone. He's gone to QPR at the beginning. God, it was early August, and you're missing someone like that. It's a big impact, but we're creating our chances, and I think with Duff coming in now, he's given us a little bit more directness. He's given a lot of the players a bit more freedom, but he's also changed around a couple of things that gives us a bit more of that strength that we were missing towards the beginning of the season, and that's where we've managed to turn it around a bit. So for us now, it's just building up that little bit of form, um, and continuing that form, and then we should be okay. But I think if we are going to succeed the season, we need Josh going back as soon as possible, and we need a couple of strong type players that we've been missing in certain areas so far.
Yeah, you said you're creating a lot of chances. I was just showing you the table here. Your XG,
Yeah.
not that I want to go solely based on stats, but what you're saying is, sorry, yeah, you were saying you created a lot of chances, and your XG obviously sees you sit at sixth. So what exactly is going wrong? Is it you're creating a chance you haven't got that goal scorer there? Is it a case of you're just, you're missing easy chances? I don't know. Yeah, just explain to us. Clearly, you're playing well and creating chances. Just how's it going up front?
Yeah, I think towards the start of the season in particular, we weren't very decisive in front of goal. I think that was the problem. So we were kind of bringing it forward, but then they'd have all their players back, and the chance wasn't the greatest chance or anything like that. And we've had a mix of strikers as well. I mean, we brought in Sam Bell from Bristol City towards the end of the deadline, or last day of the deadline transfer window. And he scored 3 goals for us so far. We've got Corley Woodrow in as well. He scored on his debut, but hasn't since. But likes to play quite deep. And then we've got a lad from Switzerland called Bradley Fink, who's just kind of getting into the squad. He's had a few injuries and things like that.
So it's the next
Then
Erling Haaland, or in the same squad as Erling
apparently
Haaland?
so, yeah,
Yeah.
apparently so. We're still to see what he's capable of, but no, promising things. I mean, one of the promising guys we've got, and we'll probably talk about when we look ahead to tomorrow, but Donnell McNeely, who was at Chelsea beforehand, and apparently used to make fools of the Chelsea first team when they were in training and things like that, has been released by Chelsea and gone to Forest, and we've taken him out on loan, and he is going to be a star. I feel he feels very much in the same mold as a Kone kind of.
Wow.
I'm not going to that extreme at that point, but
No, but
he gives
yeah.
me young Romelu Lukaku vibes. When he was younger and he was kind of like a bit more raw and exciting and things like that. We spot a very good player quite early on, and we did that with Eze. We've done that with Kone, and they've kicked on really well. So I feel he's going to be very, very special. And he's shown us that in the last few games. He's got this rawness about him, and his strength as well is very, very good. So I'm expecting him to be in the squad tomorrow. So creating a lot more chances for us, and suits the style very nicely.
Yeah, and you've got someone like Woodrow. I know his goal scoring record is pretty poor, but and even the lad from Norway, I've got his name, sorry. When you've got a
Bradley
striker like
Fink, yeah.
Fink, yeah, sorry. When you've got players like that, obviously you just need good service and the ability to finish. Don't necessarily need him to be a superstar, do you? So leave the creativity to your wide men, and fingers crossed they can sort of get the job done in front of goal. Because Woodrow, I don't know why I like him in terms of, like you say, his goal scoring record is probably one to be admired. But I think if he gets in the rhythm, then he's certainly going to have a good season in there. And players over the years have proved it only takes sort of a 1 or 2 seasons to them to find their form again, and they can be really impactful as well. So
Yeah, I think with Woodrow sometimes, I think we're often guilty of this with strikers. Sometimes you always look for a goal scoring record of a striker you know, every time a striker plays. But Woodrow's ability to bring others into play is very, very useful for us. I mean, we've been playing as a three with Woodrow in the middle, Bell on the left, and Onyedinma on the right, and his ability to bring in those wingers or create space for those wingers Is exactly why Fred and Sam Bell are two top scorers this season. So, you know, I think that's always going to be useful for us. But obviously, you do want to see your striker score a few as well. And I think if Woodrow gets a couple, I think he'll kick on quite nicely. But um, yeah, I don't mind it. I think he's a good addition. He's a leader. That's a solid head in there as well, and obviously knows Duff well from his Barnsley days. I think they played together anyway. Well, he played for Duff. I don't think they played at the same time.
Just a quick one then. This talk to us about your recent setup. Obviously, I've got the foot pump up, but it might be completely different because sometimes they get it wrong. But it was talk to us about your key players so far. Obviously, a decent 1-0 victory away from Wigan. I know they're not the top 20. Had you down potentially as a slip up that week, and they fancied Wigan more than Wycombe because of your recent away form. But
Yeah.
looking at the stats, it looked like Wigan dominated a little bit, but watching the highlights, you created some good chances yourselves. And obviously, the most important thing is you got a fantastic goal passed across the box and Bell to knock it home. And obviously, you held on for more importantly 3 points and a clean sheet. So just talk to us about your key players so far and how you usually set up.
Yeah, I mean, Wigan was a bit different because we were really flat last week, which is strange. Like, obviously, considering, since Duff had come in, would come out there and played some really good stuff. We looked really good. Um, I think we set up with a 4-3-3 or something like that anyway, with Bell on left, Neely in the middle, on Dimmer on the right, and obviously Woodrow was in the middle to start anyway. Yeah, that was it, and then McNeely came on afterwards. I think so. Anyway, do you know what? I've had a long week. But with that, we've got Luke Leahy in the middle, who's early mid-30s now. And sometimes people are like, "Oh, I don't know why he's playing. Don't know why he's playing." But I think he's created the most chances in League One of any player so far, which tells you exactly why he's in the
Why?
squad.
Yeah,
He's
absolutely.
he's got that ability there to kind of create chances and bring people into play. Our goal was completely against it was a complete counter attack.
Yeah.
Contrast because we played Wigan recently, the few weeks before, played them in the Carabao Cup, beat them 2-0. It was quite convincing. It was an easy enough win. This time was a bit more difficult. We've also got another lad in there called Ewan Henderson, he trained with Celtic. He was in Belgium last season with Beerschot and came across to us, and he's quite a creative player, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him starting tomorrow as well. Um, he was the one that kind of made the run to set up Onyedinma through, and obviously Onyedinma got the cross across, and Bell scored it. So Bell seems to be one that just seems to be in the right place at the right time, scores the goals, and that's what we need at the moment. So, I think the problem I think we've got is because we've got such a big squad at the moment. I don't think I could ever tell you what our starting 11 is going to be because we've got such a range of depth, which is a good thing in some respects. But in others, it must be frustrating for a lot of players who can't get in. Fink was supposed to be our Kone replacement, and he's been sub appearances so far and a couple of starts in the cup and things like that. So, we don't know what our best 11 is right now. All we do know is that we've got Luke Leahy creating a load of chances. We've got a couple of really creative players in the middle, and a couple up top like Bell and McNeely, which are and obviously Fred Onyedinma is scoring the goals. So yeah, I mean, even our keeper's changed. So, like, Norris started in goal on Saturday, and we've got Mickey Van Sass, who was starting most of the season to start off with. Duff seems to have gone back to Norris for the time being. Um, don't even know whether Van Sass will start or whether it'll be Norris tomorrow. So,
Yeah, we're in that situation, to be fair. Rav's could start against Stockport. He made an incredible save before, arguably probably being a little bit at fault for Stockport's goal, sort of a cross that could have probably came and punched or caught, but he was probably
that
relying on
sounds like Rav.
Casey. It maybe, but it's a case he could have dealt with Olu, who a lot better than he did. He got out muscled, and it was a nod across the goal and it went in the bottom corner. But the save he made just before the corner was utterly sensational, like a really good strike, but tips over for the bar, and it's brilliant. But I feel he could have claimed it. A lot of people think the cross should have been prevented in the first place, but that's typical Blackpool season, unfortunately. But his distribution hasn't been great. Obviously, we conceded a comical goal in the week against Nottingham Forest under 21, so that didn't make him look very good. But Peacock Farrell, to be fair, is going from strength to strength. So Dobbie's got a choice to make there. But we don't know what's going to come tomorrow. Obviously, it's Dobbie's chance at Bloomfield Road, and who knows? We're a bit like you. We don't really know how he's going to set up. We probably know most of the team because of injuries, but it's going to be quite interesting to see how you set up and we set up and who you choose as well. So, on that note, where can Blackpool have success at Bloomfield Road tomorrow?
I think if you show a bit of strength, you'll probably you'll probably be all right. We seem to make a lot of mistakes at the back. That's a lot of our goals conceded so far this season have been mistakes at the back. So, and that's generally
Could
conceded
be
by the high
4-4
press.
tomorrow.
I know. Do you know what it could be? It could be, and I wouldn't be surprised. Um, yeah, we just as soon as we've just made some silly mistakes. I think if we can reduce that, then we'll be all right. I mean, last week we showed a lot of grit, a lot of determination, and really worked hard defensively, and we made a difference. You know, it really made a difference. Kept a clean sheet, looked really good. But there's times, I mean, like the week before, um, we just we just made two goals that were just awful, silly mistakes that we made. We were down and out versus Barnsley, managed to claw it back to a 2-all, but conceded needlessly. So I think if you play your high press, I think if you show some good strength in the middle of the park, then you might get a result. But I don't know how we're going to set up. As soon as I see the squad, I'll be able to tell you if we've got a chance of winning or not. Just based on who's playing. But if it's anything like the last couple of weeks, yeah, I fancy our chances. It depends. I think the battle's going to be won in midfield. I think that's the key because we tend to vary out our midfield quite a lot. Um, and if we don't have the strong players in there, I think we get outmuscled quite quickly, and that's the problem.
Yeah, I think if Morgan, Albie Morgan and Brown start tomorrow, maybe in a 3, I would really, really hate it if we go 4-4-2 because it hasn't worked all season and we've looked we've had no, and I generally mean this, watch any game back, not that I would even pay you to do that. We've had no midfield, so it's defence, long ball bypasses the midfield. We lose the ball, they attack, we try and, not concede a stupid goal. It's back with Hickway or Casey or one of the wing backs or left and right back and kind of a hopeless punt upfield towards sort of Ennis and Taylor and we rinse and repeat it. We've not really been that creative in midfield at all. So I think switching it to a 3 tomorrow, despite it being all of our centre mids potentially on the pitch, it means Brown, Evans and Morgan can work in a 3. Brown being that workhorse, Evans can maybe ping the ball about and Morgan can sort of join the energy a little bit. But leaving if Banks is back, Scott Banks has been terrific. Well, when he has played, Bowler maybe given a bit more freedom out wide, but it's been not very good so far. And then maybe someone like Fletch in the middle of those two to try and provide a little bit of attacking impetus because we haven't got much else up front, unfortunately. But we've not scored that many with one of the lowest XGs in League One, and we've conceded obviously one of the most amount of goals, and we just look horrific at the back. So I think if you're on it, we feel the same, but the only caveat is we don't really know how Dobbie's going to set up. If it's anything like he did at the first half last week and you get an early goal, I think you could have a fun day and have a bit of confidence within you, and Duff's the sort of person to get the belief out of the team in that respect. But yeah, we'll see how you set up and we set up, and then we'll probably gauge from there about where the game will be won, like you said.
Probably with Lee Evans because he always seems to up his game whenever he faces us. I don't know what vendetta he's got against us, but he always seems to have an absolute stormer whenever you see Wycombe coming to town. So
I'll flip that question. I don't know what vendetta he's got against us because he never plays well at the moment. So at the start of last
he does
season,
against Wycombe. So
start of
you'll
last
see his
season,
best game of the season.
He was like the most creative player in the whole of the EFL / even Premier League at one point under Bruce, and we won like the first 4 and his first 4 games and stuff. But something's happened in him. It doesn't feel like maybe that's the sort of player he is, but it doesn't feel like he's really sort of dying for those 3 points. And he'll have an odd moment where he looks really good, but other than that, just points and moans a little bit. So he'll be better in a 3 where he hasn't got to move as much. But yeah, we'll see how Dobbie utilises him tomorrow. It's probably not going to happen, but who knows at the moment with Blackpool's managerial hunt. But it'd be amiss of me not to talk about Matt Bloomfield at Bloomfield Road. If it was in theory to happen, just talk to the Blackpool fans about what kind of manager you feel we would potentially get. I know each tenure is different at each club, but why was he so successful for you, and what did you enjoy about him?
Yeah, it's an odd one. I mean, it would be poetic in some ways if Bloomfield was in, but yeah, I can't see it only based on the fact that his family's in Felixstowe, which I don't think he'd uproot. So I don't know, I just can't see it. I think if he manages again, as soon as he went from Luton, I said that he would be going to Reading based on his relationship with Joe Jacobson, obviously as a player together for years, and then his manager briefly, and then obviously his relationship with Rob Couhig as well, who brought him in at Wycombe. So um, look, I mean, if you did get him, I would suspect that you would. I think if you do get him, be patient. Um, Takes a while for him to get going, but once he gets into his rhythm, he that's when he starts shining. He obviously made a few really good signings in the half season that we had where I mean, to be fair, we had the back end of the season before, and then obviously the start of last season where it was really, really good. And if 2024 was a full season, we would have absolutely dominated the league, 90 odd points, that kind of thing. It was
Yeah,
looking really good. Um, but he learned a lot while he was with us. He seems insistent on five at the back, which is where I think his downfall at Luton was, because he continued to be, insistent on using that. He was insistent with us for a period of time at five at the back until it got a bit heated. And when he switched to four, that's when it started clicking and working. What you do get from him is when it works, it's a really, really exciting style of play. But he's got to have the right players in there. What he likes to do is create a bit of chaos at the top. So you don't like, obviously he's got players crossing over each other. We played 4-2-3-1. We had the wingers literally crossing over each other to the point where no one could track them, and then we were just sliding through because we had the pace and everything like that, and we had Kone and Fred and G Mac and all that. We were just scoring loads of goals. And it was just really, really easy. Some really, really nice passing with purpose. And that's what we kind of missed towards the end of last season after he left. Um, but yeah, the problem with Bloomfield is he needs time. We saw that when he was at Colchester. We saw that when he was at Wycombe. We saw that when he was at Luton. At Colchester and Wycombe, he was given the time. At Luton, he wasn't. So,
yeah.
it's one of those that needs bedding in, takes a bit of time and everything else, and go from there. But I don't know. He's very
I
southern
doubt it,
based.
but it's yeah,
Yeah, you never know. I can. I think the problem is when you get rid of a manager so early on into the season, who do there's not much of a choice to replace him with.
no,
And obviously from your perspective at the moment, you've got Everett free, and then you haven't got much else. So
yeah,
yeah, it's a bit of a, unless you pay for someone to release them from a job, but then if you're doing that, it's a League Two manager who you're going from there. Pete
yeah.
Wild, do you know what I mean? Like, is it
No,
someone
yeah, I
like
get
that?
it. Yeah, the only person that Blackpool fans want to pay that other job is Wellens, of course. And I just think since his
Yeah,
contract signed, Charlie Wellens, his son, signed a contract today, and I just think we wouldn't or
he's
didn't
not
get the
going.
job over the line. Yeah, I mean, he wanted to come to us before Bruce or when Bruce was announced, and I think that ship has sailed a little bit. I'm not saying it won't happen in the future, but I think his next job away from Orient should be in the Championship if he continues sort of that trajectory
Yeah,
with them, and I think he'd be good enough to do it. So who knows what the future lies, but it probably is going to be someone like Everett. But you never know with Blackpool when we pulled Bruce out of the bag.
yeah, it was
You
a
just never
surprise.
know, do you? So,
No.
you got any questions for me before we end the podcast, mate?
No, I think it's where do you obviously now you've had that early manager change, where do you see Blackpool kind of in the next few months? I mean, obviously, look, it's an unpredictable, uncharted waters, but do you think you've made the right decision in getting rid now and making the change now? Do you think you can turn the tide with the players that you've got?
When they're fit, yeah, I think one of the best squads in League One. When they're not fit, it's a worry because we're desperately thin with not much quality beyond those players.
Mm,
We should have got rid of Bruce, in my opinion, after Northampton. as a maximum, but he's had 2 or 3 more games after that. I think Sadler really wanted to see if the tide did change, and it didn't, and that game against Wimbledon was the worst I've seen Blackpool play at Bloomfield Road for literally probably 6 or 7 or 8 years. It was pretty horrific from the players themselves as well as Bruce, and he ran down the tunnel at full time, and that's where the relationship ended. But it depends on the manager. If Evert's as crazy as he is, sort of off the field, on the field, and adds a bit of bite to us, I'm kind of excited by that. But when the players are fit, hopefully he can stabilise us and push back up to the top end of the table in terms of being in the top half. And then if Blackpool fans can cope with that and we have a reasonable transfer window again, then next season it should be a much more stable with a bit of consistency. He's got nearly a 50% win ratio in the EFL if it is Everett, and I think he will bring that into the team. But if it isn't him and it's a new manager, then it's uncharted waters for both Blackpool. Being in the relegation zone so early on, and the manager trying to fix it. So my hope would be just to stabilise and be in the top half. My dream is to build a bit of momentum under a new manager in the next week or so, like Orient and Charlton did last season. My fear is the injuries get worse, and it's happened to Leeds and other clubs in the past, hasn't it? And we absolutely crap the bed and we end up in a fight. But I think we'll have enough quality over the likes of Reading, Peterborough, Northampton as an example. But we need someone to fix us quick because we are very much broken.
Do you see yourself in a relegation battle as it stands?
Yes. There isn't any doubt beyond my comprehension that we're not in a relegation battle. Yeah.
I think it's too early for that. See, I think you made the decision at the right
You
time.
said as it stands, right? And as we stand,
Yeah.
we've lost to Northampton. We've looked horrific against Plymouth when they were playing at their worst football. We lost to Port Vale in the cup, and we looked awful. The wins have come against Huddersfield, who had 10 men for. We had 10 men for a lot of the game and defended resiliently, but and then Barnsley in the 94th minute from a substitution that Bruce wasn't planning to make because of an injury to Honeyman. So I'd say lucky somewhat, but we haven't played very well all season for 90 minutes, if at all, for 45. So we need a manager quick. Unless Dobbie wins 6-0 tomorrow and we look like Brazil, I think a new manager over Dobbie will be coming in, and we just need it to come quickly. We haven't made the decision very quickly this time around, and they've probably interviewed about 7 people and then can't make a decision now, which is the frustrating thing. But we need a manager quick. Otherwise, 12 games turns to 20 and you start seeing a bit of consistency in the table then, don't you?
That's the worry. Yeah. And that's why I think it's a critical point now. And I think that's where it's potentially a worry for Reading. It's a worry for Peterborough because they're not making the changes. They don't seem to be willing to make the changes either. And they're 2 big clubs that really shouldn't be there. I mean, no one's got a divine right to be anywhere in the league, but you don't expect to see Reading and Peterborough in the positions they are. I've got no doubt. I've always said to you when we've spoken anyway. I've always thought with the signings that you made at the beginning of the season, I had you up there, playoffs. Towards the
that
end of the
hasn't
season.
transitioned into winning mentality though. It's kind of
No.
You know what? It's kind of done the opposite. It's they're not a cohesive unit, which there might be a bit on Bruce. It might be a bit on the big squad time players. Honeyman didn't look anywhere near to his level of the first 2 games, and Horsfall unfortunately hasn't played a lot, but when he has played, he hasn't been very good. Peacock Farrell looked horrific. Imre's looked amazing. Now he's out for 3 months and back with Palace. Ennis is probably our best player along with Brown, but we've given them no service. Now Ennis is out for 2 months because we played a long ball to him and he landed funny on his ankles. If we played it to his feet and played him to his strengths, and it's just not very good, mate. But we'll see. A new manager, a new buzz, hopefully, like after tomorrow, and fingers crossed we can get a positive result. But it's going to take a lot to start to change the behaviours and over the last 2 years. But I'm not saying I want Critchley back, but our 8th position finish, which we all moaned about, seems like a dream at the moment. So we'll see tomorrow. Hopefully it's a barnstormer of a game and we both see some attacking outlets and some excitement. But we desperately need those 3 points. But I think with you stabilising, we're going to need a big performance tomorrow. And I'm not saying it can't happen. I'm just saying it's going to take a lot to win.
We're just able to continue our form. So if we can do that, then we start steering away and we start going into mid-table because everything starts to slightly split up a little bit now, and it starts to become a bit harder to climb up. So yeah, we're just hoping to kind of keep up with the rest of them, really.
Yeah. I'm not going to call that pod. I'm sure we'll talk tomorrow throughout the game and afterwards, or if we lose, I might just have my phone off for a bit. But it's been a pleasure to have you back on, mate, and I look forward to talking to you at the reverse fixture as well.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
No worries at all. And we'll be back to review this game next week as Blackpool look for their third win of the season. And if Blackpool do appoint a manager, we'll be back straight away to react to that and look at the potential new style of play and everything a new manager will bring to the club. But for now, from the It's Not Orange podcast, we'll see you again soon.